What happens when content creators lead the development of a video game? It's been a few years now, people saying that extraction shooters are going to be the next wave after battle royales. Well, DrDisrespect has his game out, but not exactly. Doc created his own gaming studio called Midnight Society, and over the last year, he's been publicly developing this AAA game, meaning from start to finish, they are showing the entire development process and getting feedback from the people that are playing it. Every couple months, he shows the snapshot of the game and the state that it is at, Deadrop. I played the snapshots since the beginning of it, and Doc offered to fly me out to see Snapshot 5 with a bunch of other creators. Of course, it's not just Doc that's getting into the game development. If you guys saw the announcement from Shroud, as well as even 100 Thieves and Nadeshot, obviously creating videos for the last 12 years myself, I'm very interested to see what is the actual game results, what does the game design turn out to be? Are they able to put the amount of time they need to into the game to make this as good of a product as the more traditional approach of just a game studio and ahead of whatever doing it? Which obviously these studios still do have, but it's going to be more input directly from these guys that are running the games, that they are calling the shots. Especially if this is designed more for the viewer as well, not just the player, which a lot of games are just for the sake of esports, whatever. But what about from the content creation standpoint? I even think of this from the own custom games that I've created through obviously all of the Warzone, PUBG, custom rules with the community that we do. That's been helping to keep me entertained since obviously things are a bit stale. I am rooting for and looking forward to a new game. I want these to win. So then everyone wants to know, how does this stack up with the other extraction shooters that are out there? Right now, Tarkov is the king of the space. But of course, it has massive problems, especially if you've been following some of the drama recently. From hackers to the absolutely insane barrier of entry to the game, with its steep learning curve. Obviously, that's positive in many ways for the extreme level of detail, but it also makes it more difficult for it to be more widely appealing, especially because it's not available on console nor controller. More recently, we saw Hazard Zone, DMZ, The Cycle. I know I don't necessarily need to tell you what extraction games are, but to recap the core similarities that are here in this game as well is that you spawn in against other players. You can go in with nothing at all, get a come up, or bring your own gear in that you've managed to secure from previous missions. Search for better gear around the map, even take down other players in the world and take all of their loot that they brought in or found themselves. But if you want to keep that gear and the gear that you brought in with yourself, you have to exfil or everything you brought in is lost. So then what is unique about this game? To start, you cannot immediately extract. You have to get into some fights, at least with the amount of people that are spawning in right now and the fact that once you die, you respawn twice, which I also kind of found nice rather than having to just hope you get into the same raid that you were in. You kind of just respawn with nothing into that same raid. You could go back for your gear, try and get revenge on somebody. But extracts do become available through the mid-game. There's a chopper, there's a zip line that pops up that you can use before the freeze comes up. That brings everybody together for a final exfil, similar to how DMZ's final exfil goes. Rather than radiation spreading out and covering the exfils, or in like a normal battle royale, ring closes everybody in. The verticality of this game has ice coming up from the bottom that freezes players, killing them off unless they keep moving upwards towards that final exfil elevator that'll move you further up. It also has a persistent inventory already in the game with a stash, unlike COD's mode DMZ, which converts everything into XP as soon as you exfil. Even when I got home and was playing some of my own setup, I managed to build up a pretty quick stash and felt like I was building towards something, even without missions, other objectives in the game that just really made me wish that Call of Duty had something more like this. The way Doc was talking about it, they want to have a scav experience in the game. And right now, when you die, you come back as, just with nothing. You have a pistol, but you go right back into the same raid, which is pretty much the dream scenario. If you were ever playing Tarkov, you died out, you try and choose scav, choose the same map time, and try and get back into that same raid, see if you can go kill the guy that got you, see if you can go get your gear back. It's kind of a dream scenario, but at the same time, makes it a little more scary for the person that obviously just took you out. So far through playing it, it feels more like a benefit because the lobby feels way more populated because everybody has more lives, and then they come back and they don't even have anything. You have higher odds of beating them and kind of continuing your snowball. You get to rack up more kills. The whole lobby just feels way more populated. You run into more people. But then how is the actual gunplay, the gameplay? It feels far more arcadey of a style of a game. More similar to what Call of Duty is. The projectiles even look less realistic, but more in the sense of a good gameplay flow. So there is actual projectile system. You have to deal with slower velocities, especially if you don't have the barrel on the gun, meaning you got to lead your shot. If you're using SMGs, they're going to have slower speeds than assault rifles, than DMRs, than sniper rifles. And even with sniping, even with the best barrel on it, I was still having to lead it. And the target that Doc mentioned was He wanted it to feel like a Car 98 in PUBG, which is obviously I'm biased. I love PUBG. That was where I fell even more in love with sniping. And that was exactly what I went for when I picked up the sniper, and it felt great. It felt like that. With, of course, actually hitting one taps on enemies as well. I loved it, dude. It was fun sniping. While ADS, you can also lean, although they mentioned they just added this in the last week. There's jumping, mantling. You could even slide into a mantle, slide into a zip line. As you're zip lining, increasing your movement speed, jump off into a slide. You carry that momentum, slide down hills just like in Apex Legends. You keep that momentum as you're going. There's still a lot of clunkiness to this, even just the inventory, managing that, getting out of it, and then running. It's clearly not done, but again, I'll touch more on this later. Also similar to that movement style, something that I think is well loved, at least by me, is you could stow your weapon to increase your running speed, giving you then the trade-off that you don't have your gun out if you do get into a fight, but you can run faster to escape somebody, to slide further. I think it's a great way to manage your overall movement in the game, as well as proximity chat is in the game. And this actually works directional and distance-based. Right now in the game, though, if you queue in, a lot of people don't even realize that it's on, so you can kind of use that for an advantage because you can figure out exactly where they are when they're breathing into their mic. But the idea that it's there, I even ran into a stream sniper later on when I was playing it, and we ended up teaming together for it. When I was at the event, 3 of us got on top of the crane. We were calling each other the crane crew. We were staying alive up there until I got headshot from a sniper across the map, and I was dead on the ground. But their screams of agony and fear were amazing because I still got to see that from my perspective, seeing my body drop on the ground. It was great. So then what gear are you actually getting in the game? There is an array of guns. They're, I'm sure, going to be adding more, but on top of the actual guns themselves, you also need to get attachments on them. It's more similar to how Tarkov works in that you need gear for it. It's actually even closer to PUBG, right? But more in the sense of Apex that there's different tiers of these attachments, 1 through 5, with the higher tier of it being even better, and you want to put that onto the right gun to make it as powerful as it can be. That adds a whole nother layer that you don't get from DMZ, for example, in COD's extraction shooter, because all the guns that you bring in are insured. They're fully kitted out. It's very easy to reset your insurance to get another one. And even if you can't get that, finding a contraband gun on the ground from an enemy, something decent from a commander box, you can get something that's going to be quite good. Whereas in this, if you're starting with a base pistol, no attachments, and you're going up against a assault rifle that's fully kitted out, max barrel, recoil, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get all the pieces together to get that unless you kill somebody who has worked their way up to get this masterful piece. Same thing with armor. There's 3 different tiers for this with both actual chest armor and helmet armor. Even with bags, there's 3 different tiers that'll give you different weight capacities rather than having 6 specific slots that you could put anything into, or a bag with a certain amount of squares that you can fill. The squares will just extend based on how much weight in the individual items that you're actually holding. The last time we had seen healing in the game, it was set at these healing stations around the map. There was no other way to heal. Now there's also bandages that you can put into a slot, use as a healing item. They heal 20 at a time, but they are still pretty rare, so you want to use the healing stations, from what I could tell, that also have a cooldown. They heal you about half your health. That leads to having map knowledge, knowing where these are, potentially camping them, which leads me to the map design. This is far more vertical, and I think this could be a detriment to what a lot of people even like in the first place than a lot of other games that I have even seen. The amount of zip lines that are flying across the map, and the fact that you have to continually work your way upwards, meaning you got to find yourself a ladder, you got to find a ramp, a pole, apparently you can climb up. There's even elevators, although a lot of these things are very loud. So other players hear you coming up on the flank. If they're already at height, it's like playing early zone rotation in a battle royale. But I did like that the map felt surprisingly big for it being so vertically based going up this tower. After about 3 hours or so of gameplay, I was figuring out where I generally was and how to get to the next section up. But there was also so many rooms and ramps, even secret extraction locations that were like vault doors that you could open up that were super loud, gave your position away, but could allow you to exfil right there. You do need to learn the maps, the angles, where you're exposed, with rooftop hatches that are open and line of sights that you're going to want to control, especially for that final elevator exfil. But we'll have to see how this plays over more games. So then, what is wrong with the game? There is a lot, because obviously it's not done yet. It's still in early access. It's only been a year. I think overall there's just a layer of clunkiness with everything that is unavoidable because of the state that it's at with it. Even you try and pull up your menu, loot something, there's a second delay before you can start moving. Maybe that's intended, but there hasn't been an animation added of you going into your backpack. Maybe there's just a disconnect there. Same thing with shooting and recoil. I don't think there's an actual recoil pattern. It seems to just spread in a general area, but from what I had gathered, they haven't even got to that yet. A lot of that could be changed in the future. Vertical audio as well. This seemed just missing. There was times, especially at the final exfil, where I was on the top platform, but I heard this guy like he was standing right in front of me. I didn't know until later that there actually was a room below me that they could be in, so it can be a little hard to figure out exactly where people are. When I was talking to Dr. Lupo, something he brought up, is it client-side or is it server-side smoke grenades? So if somebody drops it, are you actually safe while you're looting that body, or did the smoke just trail off to the other direction and you're actually completely in the open while you're really trying to loot? So far, the smokes actually felt pretty good, and they apparently just added that to the game last week as well. I think the overall bigger kind of concern for the game design for a lot of people might be that this is a solo-focused game. I play a ton of solos myself. This is kind of a win that it's designed like that, so I could just hop in on a game whenever I want to. That's something that's always been frustrating about me for Apex Legends, for example. However, there's also the other players that only play with their buddy or two buddies, want to hop in on a game with each other in. I guess theoretically could try and queue in at the same time and then find each other in team. That would still be similar to what the experience is even in Tarkov, because you queue in as a duo, trio, four-man, whatever, together even with the solos. But then you would have to even find your teammate to make that happen and still have clear comms to not shoot the wrong person. But it likely won't be a game, at least for now, that is, hey, you want to hop on and go play some Deadrop. I do think this makes for a very good streaming content creation piece, though, because then it makes it easier to engage with your chat. If you're live, or even if you're doing this as a video afterwards, just speaking directly to the viewer, get ideas and things out of your head without being distracted by the teammates that you're carrying. This also could easily be something that they add in the future. I also found it frustrating that at the end of the game, if you kill everybody, you immediately just end the game and you get to choose one piece of gear from all of the loot that's there. But sometimes I still had a minute left and I just wanted sniper ammo, but that wasn't one of the things that popped up on the final menu. So it would be great if I could just go run around, loot all of the bags, have a minute, and then even still take the final exfil rather than the game just ending, or if the game just gave me more options to loot that I could bring out at the end. I think the biggest thing that I see in the comments on all of this, though, is the NFT incorporation of it. We don't really have any specifics for details of what this means yet, although I do think, realistically, it does add risk to the future of, you fully investing into the game or hoping for a great game, even if you're just looking at it from the game's perspective, as I kind of am here, because it can cause other problems, even for the sake of bot farming. If this is a profitable way to, if you play something, I don't know how many of you guys also play MMORPGs. Heck, even in Tarkov, the amount of real money trading, RMTing, that goes on, especially if you're looking at some of these other countries around the world, it could be far more profitable for them to just play this game all day, sell things from it, adding tons of just bots or people that are just playing the game for the wrong reason there. And even more so, the potential for hacking. Hacking has been such a massive problem, obviously for Warzone, obviously for Tarkov. I've been sim racing recently, and it's a massive problem. It's everywhere in multiplayers. I thought, well, what if they even had wager matches? That was something that was big back in Black Ops 1, one of my favorite things. Similar to how in CSGO, you pay $3 for a key, whatever it is, you get to open the box, you get a random chance of getting something. What if everybody paid $3 to get into the game? But you don't have that random element there because people could hack. People could cheat their way to then pulling out that insanely valuable item that they want to get out and put onto the marketplace. Even what we saw in DMZ when that first came out, the amount of duplication and glitches that were in the game that allowed people to just make millions. They got to the cash limit every single game in like 5 minutes. Makes me a little more nervous for what could happen here, but obviously this is what I'm talking about with the risk of the future. We don't know how these things are going to go. To my understanding, all the gear in the game will be cosmetic only, which I think is a great move. I don't think people should just be able to come in, spend $50, whatever it might be, to get the best gun, even though they would probably not know what they're doing and then get killed off and then looted by somebody else anyways. It's style. And the thing is, if a game is fun enough and it draws in a good casual player base audience, there's going to be enough people that are willing to buy keys for cases to open and unlock and get skins. And then you could even put it on the marketplace. We just had one sell for $160,000. An AK with 4 stickers on it. But of course, Counter-Strike is already such a massively loved, huge game that it has the player base, the interest, and the clout with it, whatever it might be, to where that is valuable to enough people. There's also people that'll buy individual skins for a game that game is completely replaced a year later. Look at the Call of Duty cycle. I think the biggest outstanding question that I'll have for the game and be really looking forward as I play the next snapshots is like, what is the end game of this going to be like? what is the long game for it? I think there's already a lot more potential because of this stash capacity, because of the ability to get skins, what they could do with it. I see kind of like the game mode they've designed is superior in many ways. The differences that I pointed out over what like DMC could be, although DMZ is obviously built on Call of Duty and already has such a foundation in the actual gameplay aspect that if they incorporated more of kind of the modes, stash, even other things that Tarkov has, they might be able to bridge the gap and make their game way better. But I don't know if DMZ is even going to be continued to supported after they release the next Call of Duty, because COD always has new developers that create their game going on these cycles every year. They seem to always take so many steps backwards to take one step forwards versus what we see with the Unreal Engine, what this is built on, what we see with Fortnite, continuing to develop this engine to continue to progress the same game that they're building. I think this could be how they run this and continue to build it out over the future. Obviously, this was a huge update from Snapshot 4. They added a ton of textures, ton of the actual gameplay elements, as well as a lot more players that are actually playing this game. So if you've played it yourself, let me know what you think. Are you enjoying it? What don't you like? What are the biggest things you're looking forward to in the future for it? But I'm excited. Thanks so much for watching, listening. That's for this one, Stonemouse64. Over and out.